What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the podcast. We're here at the Greenville shop where it all started. This is the first Eagle franchise location in our company. This is the owner, Matthew.
How's it going?
How's it going? And then we have our co-host, Mike Lepers.
Hi, everyone.
So I'm really excited about this episode. Let's dig right into it. So, Matthew,
How's it going, sir?
tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot about you.
Yeah. And
But,
we grew up with each other.
Yeah.
Since, 5 years old?
Since we were 5, we met each other in the first grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. A
little background from me. I grew up, I'm not into cars at all, honestly. My passion has always been, I've always been better at numbers. My entire family is accountants. They own, I think, a total of, as of now, 17 different H&R blocks.
Wow.
And they help me a lot with a lot of tax accounting stuff, and I've just always been really good at numbers, and I'm just a very competitive person.
Yeah, I've always known you to be a really competitive person, for sure.
What got you interested in getting on board with owning an Eagle shop franchise?
Well, I was with corporate Eagle Transmission since I came out of college in 2016. I came in and I learned under Robert Hughes when he was the previous manager of like websites and
IT.
Yep, IT and stuff.
Right.
I learned under him for a couple of years silently, and then he ended up leaving, and I took over, and he really showed me the way of how to do things, and then I learned more things on my own, and I kind of became the head corporate of advertisement and website and pretty much anything technology that needed to be fixed.
The gray area, man. Yeah.
Sounds like a big jump going from IT and managing websites and, from what I remember, managing the keywords and that sort of thing into operations and owning a shop. How different is that?
Probably the hardest first year of my entire life was owning this shop.
Quite the transition, huh?
Yeah, it was. I thought I would come in, kill it, because I'm just, I guess, an overly confident person. But I got humbled very quickly when I came into a shop that had no management, no technicians, anything, and I don't know anything about cars. I just know money and I know numbers, and that's pretty much what I came into this place with.
What do you think the biggest thing you learned was? Because you said you were overconfident. What do you think the biggest thing? You said you were humbled. What was the biggest learning curve when you walked into this? Because obviously you walked in confident, but what was it that just stumped you?
I think one of the biggest things was learning to lead.
Yeah.
I think I had a big problem with I was too much of a try to make sure everyone's happy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, I can't make everyone happy, and a lot of people go through that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I had to learn it quickly because I started seeing red every month on my P&L, and it started getting painful to the point where I came across a coach that really helped me, and it really changed the direction of my shop. And I felt like that was my big turning point, was a year and a half in, and I pretty much nuked the entire staff, started over, new systems, everything. And then I started getting in the green, or more like in the black, and I could start upgrading the shop a lot more and make more. But definitely leadership was my hardest to overcome.
I talk about that all the time, and I think it's one of those roles when you become an owner that you don't think about, no matter the knowledge that you have. It's a role of leadership that's put on you whether you want it or not.
And you have to possess certain skills to be a leader. Your people need to know they can turn to you and trust you,
Right.
that you're going to guide them in the right direction. I mean, leadership has been the key to almost all of the successful businesses out there. You can't name a really successful business out there that doesn't have a great leader.
Yep.
From Microsoft to Apple to Home Depot to
Yep.
whomever. They all have great leadership.
And
And by the way, they also surround themselves by great people, by superstars.
Yep.
Whether it be a technician, a manager, a rebuilder, whomever, you have to surround yourself by ambitious, motivated people that you can lead.
Absolutely.
It's interesting how you see certain business owners and their level of ability with their store, and the higher end business owners all congregate around each other, and then the ones that have certain struggles tend to find each other.
Yes,
It's interesting how that works. The successful people always hang out with each other.
For sure. As I've always heard, you're the average of all of your friends.
Yep.
And misery loves company.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
It's very true, because there are certain people that tend to gravitate to one another when they don't have something really positive to say.
Yep. It's way easier to say something negative than it is to say something positive. It takes more effort to smile than it does to frown. And it's just one of those things. You have to constantly try to surround yourself with positivity, good, positive people that are successful, that aren't delusional. There's a big difference from being delusional and arrogant versus confident. Very big difference. Try to surround myself with people that have a track record of success.
Yeah, 11s.
The 11s. Yeah.
Well, you feed off them. You absolutely feed off them.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from the successful people. And, for instance, Coach Dean, who was on our first couple podcasts, he was my coach for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from him. Every time I spoke to him, I would feverishly write down all of his thoughts and ideas, and take them and implement them and do them. He used to refer to me as his trigger puller. When he said something, I went out and did it, because we talked about it, I liked it, it sounded good, and it led to success.
Yep.
For instance, one of the things that he recommended to me is having a I don't know how to politically correctly say this, but a female in the front office. They really tend to soften things up.
Yeah.
They really tend to take the edge off an industry that people are really not happy to be spending their money here.
Yeah.
They'd rather be out on a cruise
Yeah.
or whatever. It's about what it costs now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
And they'd rather be there than it would be, forking over $4,000 for their transmission. And the female in the front office definitely softens the situation.
Yep. Instead of getting a grungy man,
Grumpy
grumpy
pissed
man.
off.
Oil on the hands, just
Yeah.
not really caring.
Yeah.
So after this year and a half, you've made a great transition. Where do you see yourself going?
I would love to have, first I want to make this place the best it can be before I can open up a new one. Right now, you can see behind me, this is a spot I opened up a year in. It's behind my building. This is actually not my building. This is the building behind. I opened this one up, put 2 more lifts back here so that we could have more cars and I could hire more technicians. So now we're at 8 bays. And to your right, my left, there's more open. I can open up all the way up to 12 to 13 lifts, depending. So I can make this shop explode, but it's a matter of how many cars I can get in, how many technicians, and how much front staff, and it kind of, growing all those together at the same
Scaling.
time.
So you have definitely seen a difference since you added 2 bays in revenue.
Yes. I went from around, I was doing 20 a week, and now I'm doing roughly around 30 a week.
And how many technicians do you have?
Right now I have 3. I had 4 last month. I let him go because he just wasn't producing. But yeah, I have 3, and they're taking out everything I have right now.
That's awesome.
So my next goal is just, I can't really stop there. They're all full, so I need to make sure I make enough cars for the next person.
Are you, on your plan of scaling, do you plan on making this an absolute beast before you go on to, I assume, a second store, or what's kind of the idea?
I would like this place to have $2 million gross or $2 million in sales a year before I move on to another one.
Before you even think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good goal. It's a good thing to stand behind for sure. Going from 2 million to, I can honestly personally say, the 2 million mark to 2.7, scaling, as you know, it goes in lumps. You don't just slowly hit a little bit of a bigger number every single month. There's ups and downs every week, every month.
Will you define scaling, how you're referring to it?
Yeah,
in this industry?
When we talk about scaling, there's a big difference from scaling one store and then scaling multiple stores. And so kind of the model that I see a lot of the times is a lot of owners will try to get to 1.5 to 2 million, and then they'll focus on scaling to their second store. Because at 1.5 to 2 million, you're hitting a certain net percentage number that's, lack of a better term, very good.
Yeah.
And so everything kind of starts to get more smooth after a certain revenue. And you've gone through all the hoops to get there. You don't just magically get to $2 million. And you got a little bit of a well-oiled machine after that point. And so that's just one of those things. Moving on to the second store, some people like the idea of growing one store into being a $4 or $5 million shop. And then some people like getting up to that $2, maybe a little bit more $1 million a year, and then going on to their next store. So
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to get to the next level when you're wanting to get to, say, 1.5, 1.6. What's in your plan as far as promotional, outside sales, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. My biggest thing, so I'm already on track to do 1.5. Last year I did only 900,000.
it's a $600,000 jump.
Yep, for sure, and I'm really happy for it.
That's
but
really good.
I'm still hungry for more. Maybe I'm a greedy person.
It's good growth. It's good growth.
That's great growth.
But I think the number one thing that really changed how things work were my sales increase was 100% due to my inspections. My inspections, I do not pay my technicians at all to do these inspections. That was a hard sell. Good luck if you want to ever try and go down that route. It's a rough one.
And that's under the assumption that they're flat rate techs.
Correct. They are
Right.
all flat rate. None of them have guarantees,
Yep.
except the only one that has a guarantee ask is my foreman, who gets a certain amount per week just to help everyone else. But they all get the inspection. They do a 60-point inspection. They take pictures. I have the minimum take 15 pictures on a car, minimum. And if there's not, I bring them into my office and I have them explain why on every car. I have no exceptions for that.
Even waiters with oil changes.
Waiters are a little bit different. I'll get to that.
Okay.
I have them to do a car that's dropped off. I have them do a 60-point inspection. Anything that's wrong, they take a picture of it, and they they give it to the service advisor. I have the technician build the ticket, and whenever they build the ticket, I have it automatically increase the hours by 20%. Sold. So they don't get paid for the inspection, but they get a 20% increase on hours on anything they find and anything my service advisor sells.
Okay, at that point, what is your service advisor's conversion rate of what they're recommending versus what is actually being sold? Do you have a
Like a breakdown versus what their main concern is versus
we used to call it TARO, total average repair order that was presented.
Total written.
That was,
Total average quote.
my
Tech quote.
average RO?
Oh.
Or a tech quote? I mean,
technician presents $1,000,
Uh-huh.
but only can sell 650 of it. So he's at 65%.
Yeah. So 2 months ago, before I got this inspection thing going in, this is fairly recent, and it's been doing fantastic. Before that, he had around a 30% sell rate. After the inspection, he has a 65% sell rate. Because of pictures, the customer can't really say you're lying.
Right. And when you say 35%, to be totally clear to everybody, we're talking about 35% of the inspection of the ticket, not 35% of vehicles that come in get sold, right?
35% of jobs presented. So
Right.
if there was, like, say, 3 jobs on a car, he sold one of them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because I think that gets misconstrued a lot where people think you're only selling 35% of the amount of vehicles that come in
Yeah.
versus what is actually on the inspection.
Yep. And that's not even including the ones that didn't come in. So
Yeah.
that goes even worse. But
So what I was going to ask you about that, so the biggest thing was the inspection process. How did you go about, I know you may have had issues selling your vision and actually getting it implemented. What did you do to get it implemented? Because I know a lot of shop owners struggle with getting very specific big changes implemented in their shop. What did you do?
So, to be completely honest, I kind of had a cheat with it. I had a technician, the one I let go, or I didn't let him go. He left. We left on good terms, but he
That's good.
came from Christian Brothers, and he had this inspection already done, and he was used to doing this inspection. Christian Brothers does this inspection, and that's where I took it from. He showed me. He brought it because they use Techmetric. He brought the inspection to me, and I was able to implement it, and he's already doing it regardless of me telling him to do it or not. And then I had him show, I was able to pull up data and show him, the technicians, how many hours he's doing because of it. I could see how many the average ticket sold versus inspection versus no inspection, and it was a difference of around $700 per car.
Wow.
I believe it.
Did it change a lot for the technician that was doing the inspection? Did you have, this is kind of a big debate I hear a lot of the times, is like, I have one guy that does the inspections, or is it across the board? You have everybody do inspections?
Everyone does it.
Do you see a big difference in the tech quote depending on who does it, or you just hold their feet to the fire on everybody doing everything?
Yes and no. Obviously, some of my technicians don't know how to do everything. Some of them are lower, like a lower B tech or a C tech. They don't really, you can't do the very high level diagnostics. So if there's anything they have questions on, they bring the foreman in to help with the inspection. But most of the time, it's honestly just a lot of picture taking of leaks, brakes that look awful, stuff like that. That's really easy grabbing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be super high end. Like, oh, we found a wire that was misthreaded, yada yada. No, just these brakes look bad. Here's a picture.
Do you find the technician getting frustrated on that 30% that service writer cannot sell? If he's going, come on, man, I'm trying to make a paycheck here.
Oh, absolutely. That's when that's why I was thinking about letting him go, because we weren't getting enough sales in. And then when he finally started doing the inspections, as I showed him, then we started getting enough work for everyone.
Yeah.
So it was to the point where my technicians were roughly getting, they were only finishing around 20 to 30 hours a week, and they were very upset about that.
I would be too.
Yeah.
Are there jobs that he's not successful at selling, but it really is an easy sell, that if the customer turns him down, we used to call TO, turn it over to a different salesperson to make that secondary call to give it a shot?
I like the idea of TO stuff.
It works great.
Yeah.
Second,
If it's done, just like anything, consistency is the art of getting
done
anything
correctly.
done, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a TO kind of process?
Yes. So any declined work will go to my assistant. Her name's Holly.
Right.
She's my woman up front in the office. She's
Yep.
very
Yep.
kind with
Yep.
callbacks. She calls back any declined work, and she also has any kind of follow-ups as well.
Good.
Nice.
Good. Follow up on the ones that you didn't get in.
Follow and ones that are in, but we need like an update. Like, we're still waiting on parts. Give them an update every day. The
Good.
car's here.
Good.
And is she full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pay her around $500 a week, and she does all of that for me, and she files all my paperwork.
Oh,
That's awesome.
yeah. That is so nice. One of the things I was going to ask you, you were talking about the inspection process, and I only ask this for the majority of the people that listen that do heavy driveline. You know, I hear commonly, well, what if I had a transmission issue and I'm trying to sell a transmission, but you tacked on all this other stuff onto it? How am I supposed to sell? Do you sell, what is your sales process? Do you sell everything on one pitch, or what do you do? I know what I do with it, but what do you do with it?
I will absolutely sell everything in one pitch.
Yep.
If I don't sell everything in one pitch, my service advisor is going to be too afraid to bring it up, and or it will never be presented to the customer, and then that it creates a liability for me for me not telling the customer that something small was not working on their car.
Absolutely
and then they're going to
agree.
be pissed off at me and not trust me.
Absolutely
See, I've
agree.
heard and seen executed the exact opposite, in which address the concern they came in for first.
Absolutely.
Then go on to, by the way, while you're here, there's some things that your vehicle needs
Right.
that we're able to take care of while you're here. Certain ones are critical, others are a regular maintenance thing. And you're softening the blow. You're not taking a $4,000 job and making it a $6,000 job just like that.
Right.
Oh, no, yeah. I hope to make it clear that I don't make it to where they have to do everything. I've spread it out for them. I address their primary concern first,
Digestible chunks.
but it all is presented at the same time. Because a lot of
Yep.
people will be like, oh, I don't want to present all of this because it's going to scare the overwhelm the customer. That's exactly what my
All the
manager
initial
did.
call.
But I tell them, like, address the primary concern, tell them these things you need to fix, these things maybe you can wait a couple months, and then just keep going down the line.
Right.
Just whatever
Right.
they need, and that brings trust. And I also have a system so that they don't have to worry about it. In 3 months, say if their brakes aren't working or their brakes need to be replaced in like 3 months, I have a system where it texts them in 3 months
To tell them it's time.
yep, hey, you should probably get your brakes done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the texting follow-up is really nice because the follow-up doesn't always happen with the deferred work.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was going to ask is, we're talking about how you implemented these things, but how I said nothing can ultimately get done without consistency. What kind of an accountability system do you have? An accountability system that for when you implement a process and you want it to consistently get done a month later, do you have an audit system, or accountability wise, what do you do to make sure everything that you're trying to get done gets done without being too much of a micromanager?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is something that is that's hard to do. I do audit my system, and again, like if I have to go in and manually look at almost every ticket, but it is easier because you can kind of see that in overview state to see if they did the inspection.
Well, what kind of a frequency and how in depth are you going in on those audits?
I do around once a week, and I go in and look at the inspection, and then make sure all of the inspection matches how much is put on the ticket, and they weren't skipping on like something that they didn't want to present to the customer, or scared, or whatever the reason. I go in every ticket on my job board once a week, and I look at all of them to make sure the inspection matches my estimate.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, well, that's a talk with my manager and a talk with the technician.
Well, and that gives them an opportunity to define or explain why it was not sold.
Yeah.
And is it on the follow-up for the customer turned it down, brakes they want to wait 30 days? He can show you that he has put that on for 30 days to remind them that it's break time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
One of the other things that I wanted to tell you, I know you're scaling your business. You want to get to 2 million mark and all that stuff. I own 2 stores. They're 800 miles apart from each other. And kind of some of the advice that I wanted to give you going into that with auditing and making sure that you can get long-lasting change that's scalable, but where you're not in the shop every single day. It allows you to scale. It's an idea that I got from the book Traction. And what it is, after you get to a certain level of revenue, everything's running smoothly, but you still need that accountability. You still need the auditing. I audit throughout the week, but I kind of lost grip of it once we opened up Mansfield and we started doing that, but I'm getting back on track with it. Every Tuesday, we would have a company meeting with me, my shop foreman, and my manager. And I would get a list of questions preemptively throughout the week, and my manager would get a list of questions throughout the week. And he wouldn't blow me up, and I wouldn't blow him up. And then in this meeting, we would have a pre-done list of things that we review from the week prior. I get an hour set aside. We look at everything on the list. We look at call volume, gross revenue, the amount of tickets, inspections on oil changes, stuff like that. And then after that, even if nothing's changed or if there's no issues, we still go over that stuff regardless, because otherwise you forget about it. And then we address each other's concerns with each other, questions that he may have for me, questions I may have for him. And the whole point to it is that it creates accountability for me and it creates accountability for him. It creates an environment where I'm able to talk to him about issues that I see, but I'm also not all over him about it throughout the week. But then also, he's able to give me a list of things that he needs and wants. So then I have until the following week to try to get it done. So that way the following week comes, there's accountability on my end where he's relying on me to get certain things done. I'm relying on him to get certain things done. And it's just a really good thing. And then we have quarterly meetings and stuff like that.
Do you have an example of what he would want from you or need from you and expect you to get it done within that week, that next week?
Yeah. If we talked about doing a new form of advertising, or if we talked about upgrading a piece of equipment,
All right.
or upgrading the phone system, or working on outside sales, setting up pizza deliveries for clients or wholesale clients that send us work. Things that he doesn't necessarily get time to do, that he forgets about, that I can do. And then we are both, it gives him a sense of ownership too, kind of, on the store and what's going on with the shop. So it kind of helps. Like I talk about things that I'm trying to do, and he talks about things that he's trying to do, and then we come together with issues that we also both have, and it just creates a really good accountability program. It really creates a good business environment where the employees feel safe. They feel like there's organization,
Communication.
They feel like there's things getting done, instead of just this throughout the week pulling your phone out and texting all the time type thing. It kind of eliminates that. I cannot talk to my manager for a week at a time doing this strategy. When we were doing this consistently, we didn't talk but maybe twice a week, and it actually really worked out well that way. So
I gotcha.
I can't wait to get back to that.
So do you do it with each manager or your regional manager?
Well, now that we have Mansfield, we're doing it 2 different meetings.
Okay.
So now I'm doing a separate meeting with him, and then we're also doing another meeting with all of us together. And mind you, the foreman is involved, because then he feels like he's a part of the team. He feels like he kind of has an idea of, it's like the leadership team. You know, what I try to explain to my foreman is like, these may not all be things that pertain to you, but you need to understand what's going on in the shop, so everybody's on the same
Sitting
page.
in, listening to what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand where the manager is coming from when he's trying to do X, Y, and Z, and you're able to help him enforce it.
Right.
So it makes a considerable difference, for sure. The foreman always agrees with it. Now in Mansfield, I don't know if I'm going to do a foreman.
Yeah. Why is that? Not good enough technicians out there?
No, I think just at the end of the day, you're always going to have that one lead technician. I don't think a foreman is necessary until you get about 5 techs, personally. Because after 5 techs, it makes sense to have a foreman, but...
Do you have clear lines of reporting responsibility when you have a foreman? Like, he's the head guy out here. If he tells you to do something or not do something, he's in charge.
I have one conversation like that when he's promoted, and then after that...
But you announce it.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Team huddle. We tell everybody, but other than that, he pretty much takes the lead of the shop. You know, a foreman always takes that leadership role, and
he's
he
got to
loves
possess those qualities, though.
Yeah.
He has to. I mean, you promote the wrong person to a shop foreman, and that can go to their head. And all of a sudden, it's a bully pulpit.
It's all about leadership. I had my first foreman that I ever had. He was my best hour turner, and we made him a shop foreman, paid him an extra $2 per total production hours of the shop on top of everything. And it really worked out. He's getting an extra $400 or $500, I think, a week doing that. And he really liked it, but he wasn't a leader. He was the top tech, but he wasn't a leader.
Yeah.
And so he didn't really help the other guys very much. He didn't really take to it very well. He just kept pumping his hours, and it was like pulling teeth trying to get him to help the other guys.
He was
Yeah,
more
it's a hot shot.
He was more interested in making money than
Exactly.
he was leading people.
Exactly. And yeah, and this foreman that I have now, he helps everybody with everything, and it's so great. He'll take a hit on, and that's the whole point of paying him on total production hours. He's supposed to be taking a hit on his production hours, but he's getting paid on the total shop production hours.
You haven't paid was it a couple bucks per shop hour? That's not him.
Yeah, I think it's $2 or $3 of total shop
Total
production.
shop hours.
So he makes 40 per flat rate hour, but technically he makes 43. And the way I do it in TechMetric is I have everybody's pay in TechMetric actually $5 more than what they actually get paid because of taxes and all that other stuff, possible guarantees that get played in there.
Yeah.
So it's all covered.
What I speaking of that specifically, you might want to try doing your effective labor and divide that by how many hours your shop did, and then put all of your technicians, regardless of what they pay. So if you average, your technicians are average $35 per hour, I make all of my technicians $35 per hour.
You're talking about on the back end of the system.
Yes.
Doing an average across the board. I've heard that.
Through your effective labor rate. Not your labor rate, your effective labor rate, which shows in TechMetric on the reports.
How much more are you bumping everybody up on that average?
I have a technician that's 25, and I have one that's 30, and they go roughly up to around 40.
I've heard
So
of a
it
couple
makes-
different ways to do that.
It makes my manager pump up more because I told him he can't sell anything below 50% gross profit, except for a transmission, which is I have him sell it on 200 gross profit per hour. If it has to be above that. But it helps selling jobs more at a better profit.
So the 40, where are you getting that number exactly?
40 what?
41. No, you said that you put their pay rate, one gets paid 25, one gets paid 35, but you're putting it in the system as 40.
Yes. So
Where does that number you're saying it's based off of effective labor rate.
divided
How are
by
we getting that number?
effective labor rate is generated on the system is it divides how many hours your shop is open by like what your shop's actually producing. In TechMetric, there's an effective labor rate. I usually take the last 30 days, and then I divide it by how many hours they actually completed, and then that will give you that exact cost per hour.
Did you say hours open or hours completed?
So there's three factors in it. So the reason why I bring up shower hours open, that's what makes the effective labor rate, but you don't really need to know that if it's in the reports. So there's an effective labor rate that's in the system that is divided by, I believe, how many hours they produced, how many hours they produced by how many hours they were actually in the shop, which I think mine came out to, my labor rate of the shop is 130. My effective labor rate was around 111. So that's how much I actually got. And then you take that effective labor rate and divide it by how many hours they finished, and that could give you roughly around 35 to 40, somewhere in there. And then you put that for every technician.
I tell you, I've heard it done a couple different ways. I like that way. I think that's a really good way of doing it.
It's a good way to measure it.
The way I've heard it done before, though, I know some other shop owners, they'll look at their actual the actual P&L, and they'll look at their total labor costs and divide it by the total production hours, and then that's how they get the average, because it always ends up being more than what you put it in the system just because of thises and that's. But not everybody always has an up-to-date P&L.
Yep. That's
Which,
a hard one,
even
especially
though they
in
should,
accrual.
but accrual is a very tough one to crack.
Yeah,
That's a learning curve.
It's been taking me some time to make sure every single thing is in accrual. I have to send it any parts that I ordered in, let's say January, but the job got finished in February. I have to move it over to February, the parts from my P&L, to make sure everything lines up properly.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
It's a tough one.
You know, I understand it, but I never did it because it was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I just, hey, if I bought it in January and I didn't get revenue until February, oh well. It all washes out at the end.
It's really difficult when you have a huge amount of carryover as well.
Of course.
Because then your parts bill is way more. It's a lot longer conversation with your
But
bookkeeper.
then your next month's a lot less.
Yeah.
It catches up to itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Matthew, kind of backpedaling a little bit, how long have you owned this shop now?
I owned it. I bought it in December of 21, and I had honestly, no idea what I was doing compared to what I know now. And I had no crew. I will not put out the name of the person who owned it before, but it was in complete shambles. When I tell you there was liquor bottles on the lift, half drinking, it was not good.
Now, when you say you had no crew, is that
I was
because you, like, metaphorically or, like, literally?
I walked into the shop alone.
Oh, yeah.
I had no one there.
Yeah.
And when I bought it, the star rating for the shop was 1.7. It is now at 4.2.
Google reviews, 1.7?
Yep.
That's a tough one to come back from.
Yeah.
Really is.
I spent around $40,000 when I first came into the shop, giving everyone. I messaged everyone they had the old Eagle Transmission software, and I went in there, and I had you help me pull the data for every number, and I put it into a text messaging software, and I blasted every person.
I remember.
Saying, if you have a warranty with us and it was denied, I will take care of it if it's within warranty. I got a lot of cursing, a lot of screw yous, quite a bit. But I spent around $40,000 fixing people's cars that weren't my problem, but they became customers for life for me.
Yeah.
So I think it was worth that initial investment.
Was there a moment where, like, a deer in headlights moment, like, how far along in did you realize that this is not what you thought, that you got to step up your game?
I think probably one of the lowest points of my life was here. I think because I think I should probably back up a little bit. When I first bought this shop, the same day I bought this shop was the day I had my first child.
I remember that.
I signed the papers in the hospital. I was also buying a house, but that's irrelevant as well. So
there's no pressure
multiple. I had a hold the
There's a lot
baby,
going
signing
on.
papers.
And a bottle of Xanax next to it.
Yeah.
So I was already trying to learn to be a father for the first time, and then trying to be an owner as well. As David would probably know me, I was fine with just doing my 9 to 5, keeping making sure everyone, all of the other Eagles were taken care of. I do AdWords for them. I make sure everything that's good, and I was fine with that. I just kind of stayed at home, or sometimes I went to the office. But it was a lot of growing pains to become a father and an owner at the exact same time. I think around 6 months in is where the pressure really started to crack me. The shop wasn't doing well. I couldn't find any technicians that were worth a lick, because who would want to work for a shop that has 2-star rating?
Yeah.
Everyone hates you.
Yeah.
It was hard to find technicians and managers that were, worth a lick. So, I'm Christian. I pretty much sat in my office one day. I remember pretty much just crying out, just like I had tears coming to my face. I had no money left.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And then I came across my coach, and he really helped me turn it around. I wiped my crew probably 3 times. I started, stopped feeling sorry for myself and just kicked it in the next gear. Because, I can sit around and blame this, that, or the other. But it's ultimately on me to make sure this place is a success.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, 6 months in, and then it changed me. And then I think I became a better owner because of it. when your back's up against the wall, I think that's the best. That's your best fighting mood right there. You when you have
Yeah.
I have to, and then I had another kid around that time as well. So I have 2 daughters, and that's when I was like, I gotta make more money.
2 under 2. Yeah, that's tough. That's very difficult.
So how were you able to turn your Google reviews around? I mean, a complete 180.
I think the biggest thing was I actually went. I've heard this statement before. It always makes me laugh. Is pounding the pavement. I went from store to store to store to store to. I even went to houses, and I had business cards of my own. I did not have an outside sales guy. I couldn't afford Chuck. I like Chuck. I just couldn't afford him at the moment. I use him now, but
Shout out Chuck.
good old Chuck. I went place to place. Like, oh, that place is terrible. I was like, I'm the new owner. It's nice to meet you. And I was just trying to be as nice as possible to every person. I go to eat. I have Eagle on my shirt somewhere on me, and I am trying to be the example citizen of any, like, just I try to be nice to everyone. I try to talk to everyone, try to learn everyone's names around here. This place is very community driven. I've been over to, like, they have like fairs, and I went over there, talked to people, met people, gave them my business card. I give people business as much as I can. Stuff like that, like car washes around here. I send a lot of the cars, if I do a job that's over $2,000, I send it over there to get car washed.
So you did most of this yourself.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, one of the things that's very clear to me that you learned is the leadership role. And I think a lot of people are scared to be leaders because they don't know if they're going in the right direction or not. I think the whole point that people misunderstand is what people want in a leader is somebody that's going to stop feeling sorry for themselves, but go in a direction regardless of anything else, and they're going to make it happen. Even if they're maybe a little off or a little wrong, they're going to find the right way eventually. And you're going a certain way and people are following you. If you are headed in a certain direction that people will follow you, they'll follow you. But if you just sit and feel sorry for yourself, you never truly head in a direction that's going to allow people to follow you. And so you could be going a certain direction, and if you're lost and confused, everybody sees that you're lost and confused, and they don't want to follow something like that. But as long as you take the direction for yourself, you start heading in a direction, people that work for you will see that and get behind you on it.
For sure.
And when you see that you're going in the wrong direction, you'll be like, oh, we're going to make this adjustment. I was wrong here. Now we're going to go this way. And they'll keep trudging along with you.
Right. Were you able to utilize the folks out of Austin, the Google review people?
Consumer Fusion?
Consumer Fusion.
They have been a great help. I think it's been well worth the $55 I send into as a check every month. They've replied to every Google. I say with sometimes within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They reply, and then I also get messages. I think I've gotten 10 reviews removed, which is great because I had so many 1-star reviews when I bought the place that I couldn't get removed. That's been fantastic use. I think Consumer Fusion has been great.
Good.
It's so worth the money. There's other companies that charge $400 per review. Yeah.
Yes.
It's wild.
Yeah. I remember when I was the one that had to try and get them removed. It was a lot easier back then. Now it's not nearly the same as it was.
Everything's AI driven now. Everything, even Consumer Fusion's AI driven. It's an automatic software that'll automatically report the review according to what it sees in the content.
Yep.
So,
anyone out there that tries to get if they're not using Consumer Fusion, try to remove it themselves, and/or if you want to ask me, they use a personal name, they curse, or they mention another location of anywhere else, like another, the transmission shop. The transmission shop is so much better. That is grounds for removal.
yeah.
For anyone that was wondering.
Gotcha. Those are the 3 biggies.
I'd say so. There's more, but
Yep.
those are the ones
Honestly,
that usually
just
get taken off quick.
Other company names, really, even if they say stuff like O'Reilly's or
Yep.
yeah, doesn't even have to be a direct competitor. So
Yeah, but you also got to be careful that some people will mention places they hate in a 5-star review, and sometimes those get removed. So
yeah,
just
I found the ones that get removed the most are the ones where it specifically calls out that name of the person.
Mhm.
They say, "Oh,
they can say first name, they can't say last name.
Yeah,
Like if they said David Block was a terrible, terrible front staff, that could be grounds for removal.
yeah, it's bullying and harassment."
Correct.
Yeah,
We don't want that.
no, absolutely not.
But Bing and Yelp are the wild, wild west. Good luck.
So now, do you think you gotta?
Does anybody really pay attention to them anymore?
I'd say anyone under 25 years old, no, they do not.
Right.
So Matt, now do you think you have a pretty solid crew, and you're kind of getting a little bit more in a flow state with the shop?
For sure, I'd say I have a really solid crew. Everyone here has a good attitude, and that's one of the biggest things I like to do in culture. I don't want people to come into my shop and hate their life because someone's
They poison it.
Yeah, they
They
hate
poison
being
the
around
culture.
Yeah,
them. But yeah, no, everyone's kind of doing what they're supposed to do. Obviously, there's always tweaking. There's always improving.
it's a never-ending.
And I have a list of things, but I try not to be like picky on it. My crew's told me I've been a little bit picky sometimes about, like, they say I cherry pick some things. I was like, well, we should have had it done. But I try to come at it in a positive light than a negative light, and they seem to respond better to that. But every person's different. Some people like to be yelled at for some reason. That's the only way to get to their heads.
You know, as a business owner, I would think that you consider goals important. And the one thing I've learned about goals over the years, if they're in writing, they exist. If they're not, they're just thoughts in your head. So
Yep.
I had advised for years during coaching, every January came around to have managers and new owners set their goals for the year. What do they want to accomplish? And then make them quantitative, that there's got to be some value attached to that goal, some way, shape, or form.
They have to have something to aim for. Sometimes people really need a goal because they don't know what they're shooting for. They're just the most amount of revenue you can possibly
They
get.
need to be attainable.
Exactly.
They need to. You also need to show how am I going to get there.
Yeah.
When I had several shops, I would have the managers write out goals each year, and I would write them with them so that they could show me how they were going to attain those goals.
Yeah.
It was mostly revenue driven, ARO driven, cost driven, mostly financial driven, but we also worked some personal life values in there and
Yeah.
goals within their life. So I found it really important. My goals used to go up on my mirror where I'd get ready in the morning. They'd be right there. I'd see them every day.
See it every day. I have mine in my closet.
Yeah.
I don't have a personal goal sheet, but I have one for the crew on my what I call the war board.
The
The
war
board
board.
system.
Yeah.
I have it on there for a goal of 150,000 for the month in
Nice.
sales at a certain car count. So if they break that, then I'll pretty much let them tell me what they want, and we'll just do a
New
goal. And
Blackstone
then
grill.
I move the goal up to 175, and then if they break that, then they get to tell me what they want again.
It's hard in our industry to continue to just have that upward path all the time, because in our industry it does fluctuate.
Yep.
We do get months where back to school, vacations, state fair. I mean, all these things affect our revenues and subsequently our costs.
Some of it's regional too. State Fair doesn't affect me in Colorado.
No, it doesn't.
Affects everybody in Texas.
But you
It,
get
it actually doesn't affect me too much out here.
No, you're
Yeah.
kind of in a
I'm
rural.
I'm way out here.
Out. Yeah.
I know.
I tried to come out here. I got offered another shop, but I took this one because I've already had someone think that I was advertising over them, but it was a misunderstanding. And I that's why I specifically chose the one way out here. So if I'm the corporate advertiser, I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to think that I'll step on you to get leads. I
Because-
would never do that.
because
I never
they
want
think
people to think that.
That you know all the ins and the outs of doing that.
Yep,
You
and
still
I'll
don't want
prefer
that-
mine over theirs.
Still don't want that perception, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get it.
Even if like I know I would never do it, but even the thought
Right.
of putting that in their heads, it's not worth it. So I drive an hour to work every day.
So, are you working on any community involvement events, stuff like that?
Not really any events, but I just I kind of just talk to every person here. I also have connections with my brother. He owns the Smoothie King right down the street from me. I come over there and help make smoothies sometimes, and I talk to the customers.
Yeah.
And
I think the community involvement helps a lot. We have one in Colorado called Parker Days, and it's like a big car show thing, and
Yeah.
we have a tent. You were there. Yeah.
Yes,
You
yeah.
were there on the second one that we ever did. Oddly enough, I always have a spike in revenue anytime we do an event. I think that everybody should be doing 1 to 2 events a year. You could do it around holidays. I usually have Thanksgiving or something going on in the summertime. It just helps with community involvement,
Do you have
handing
a
deals
way-
out.
Do you have a way to track how much you spent on it versus how much spike of revenue you
That
have?
age-old question.
Yes.
How did you hear about us, or who referred you to us?
I tell you
Oh, I saw you out at Parker Days. Oh, thank you.
that, but then also what I would do, I did it the most cheap way you could possibly do it. We would print out pieces of paper with deals on them, and I numbered the pieces of paper. So on Word, you can get on the header, you can make where it automatically numbers every page when you print it. And so I would just print deals out, and we would have little gift bags and hand them out to people. And I mean, I did some wild deals. I mean, there was a time where we did free oil changes for people. There's all kinds of different things. But when people would come in with that piece of paper with that number on it, we'd just mark it, notate it on there. And it just really, the biggest thing is people that have issues with their vehicle, they see your tent, your little thing that you have set up, and it's just like them seeing your website. They walk up to you and they're like, hey, I got this going on with my car. And then you just develop that relationship. They start trusting you, and before you know it, they're bringing their vehicle in the
It's all
shop.
about relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we had done in Carrollton is we went to the Carrollton Little League, and we brought to them, I think it was 20 or 30 cases of water. The cases of water didn't cost that much, but our name, excuse me, was right on it.
Yeah.
And we donated them
Yeah.
to the Little League, and the Little League was able to turn around and sell them for $1 a piece.
Yeah.
They kept all the profit. We just wanted that name recognition out there as they continue to see us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. 26 locations. If everybody did 1 to 2 events a year,
The brain would explode for everyone.
Sure.
in 1 month, there would be months where shops would just pop off. It would help everything across the board. Branding. There's so many things where if we all came together, and that's why I'm trying to do this more and more. If we all come together on different ideas and all work together on these big ideas together, because not one person can do it.
No, that was
It would help us so much. It would help the brand so much.
that's kind of the premise behind owners' best practices.
Yeah.
What's working for you? What
Yeah.
are you doing? What ideas do you have? What do you bring to the table so that all the owners or together as a group we can execute it and do it?
Yeah.
You know, I've always been saying I've always wanted to do this. Was have corporate do a I don't know, some kind of sporting event for each store. I would say like we just do basketball, and then winner gets no franchise fee for the month.
Oh.
Well, Mr. Block, let's
Oh,
do
yeah.
it.
That's a great idea. However,
It would get so competitive.
all of us can play basketball.
Come on.
Dude, it would get so competitive, and everybody would be complaining about fouls and
Cheating.
Yeah.
You have to have referees.
Oh,
you'd
absolutely.
have to have referees.
You know who's
yeah.
a big-time basketball player?
I don't know who.
Jersa.
Jersa.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
We'll see.
He-
We could definitely play.
He'd be into it.
I'd be having a
Goodness
fun time.
gracious. That would get wild out there.
He'd want free AdWords for a month.
Yeah.
He would be hiring. The people would be hiring
He'd want the list.
like semi-pro basketball players for a technician for a week.
That would be so crazy. I mean, there's other things that you could do outside of basketball.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it'd be fun just to have something like that. But that's just me personally.
Yeah.
Or maybe something so off the wall that no one plays.
Street race. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like that won't cause any problems.
Is that a video game?
Oh no,
No.
he's just talking about real street racing.
Real street racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where people are just ramming into each other and crashing.
Oh, like
Great time.
this weekend, that NFL football player from the Chiefs, he rented a Maserati and a Corvette and was racing down Central Expressway, and somebody had it on their dash cam, and he smashed
Oh my
and
goodness.
damaged big time both their cars and 2 other bystanders, their cars. So
Everybody's got a dash cam now.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
there's cameras all over.
speaking of dash cams, I've delivered customer vehicles to their home and have been on the phone with my manager talking about other customers' vehicles.
Ooh.
And by the time I almost pulled up to the customer's home, I realized they had a dash cam. And I would be like,
Why are you doing that?
you know what?
I heard a manager I called the other day. He picked up the phone. He said, "I'll be right with you," and he set it down.
Ugh.
Didn't put me on hold, and heard all the F-bombs and
The cursing.
all the cursing
casual.
and the slang. It's like, don't do that.
I really don't like it. And
Because that girl was saying, "Oh my."
it's all too common.
heavens.
It's all too common
Oh,
now
golly.
when managers put people on speakerphone.
Hate
I
it.
hate that.
No,
Yeah.
don't allow it.
I do not like that at all.
It's also worse. I don't know if you can see me, like when I've seen multiple managers, talking, and they're like, "Oh, I hate this person," blah blah blah, and then you can easily hear that,
Yeah.
It does
like,
not cover like yeah.
even if they don't hear you 99% of the time, it's not worth that 1%.
Yeah.
No, it's not. There is a mute button.
Yeah. That's like me doing this and you can't hear anything I say.
No.
I wonder if it actually went through. Or
We'll
not.
see. I have no idea. I bet you it does go through.
Yeah. But as far as my shop growing, I've done, I've tried to clean it up, paint it.
Oh, it's way more clean for sure.
I added more lifts. I had to replace new lifts. By the way, Best Buy Auto.
Best Buy Automotive
I
Equipment.
bought
Yep.
3 lifts. They were around 3,500 each, and they are quite good lifts.
But how does the delivery work on that though? When you buy something online like that,
So
shows up.
I didn't deliver it here because I don't have a forklift on site.
it has to be a forklift.
Yes. So you could either pay, I think, an extra like $700 for them to pull it in for you.
Absolutely not.
I actually had CarQuest. They were willing to hold it for me. They have a forklift on site, so I mailed it to them, and they had it on site. I had it over there for a couple months because I was waiting because they were also the people that do the install for me, and they were busy, so it was over there for 3 months.
Wow. You haven't had any issues with these?
No, I had one, and that was not due to the lift. That was due to the installment. There was a hose that had the fluid. The pressure popped off, and it's all over the car. And the car was undrivable because the transmission was completely out. So I had to bring the lift down and just start wiping the car off where the paint just started peeling right off that car. Because that would not have been a great conversation with the customer.
No.
No,
You
it
know,
would
we're
not
talking about when we were talking about reviews, we're talking about that. There is this weird fine line of customer care versus your responsibility to the customer of the vehicle. You know, we were talking about before this reviews and 1-star reviews, 5-star reviews. Whether a 1-star review is your fault or not, like, where is the line drawn with that kind of stuff? There's people that will leave you 1-star reviews when something is not your fault. But then you have situations where you have transmission fluids going all over a vehicle. And
I got
now
a good review by that one.
You
By the way,
you got a
I got a good review.
oh nice. But
I let them know what happened immediately.
But you get situations where something isn't your fault. How far do you go to accommodate that person to keep that bad review from getting on, even if they think it's your fault, whether it's your fault or not? Like, where's the line of customer care end for you? Because you said you spent 40 grand right off the rip, and that wasn't necessarily your fault. You were covering up the past sins of the shop.
Absolutely. But I just thought of it as an investment because everyone hated this shop.
Yeah.
And I literally talked to a lot of people. I mean, I think I've had conversation with these people almost weekly, to the point where if I didn't do that, I don't think I would have survived.
Yeah.
People were like, "Oh man, the previous ownership, they were terrible, blah blah blah," or the previous manager, he was a beep beep beep, you know. And he was like, "Oh, but I really like you guys. You guys are very professional, blah blah blah." You just gotta. It honestly comes down to not even the repairs to the car. It's the system. They don't repair the car. They can go anywhere to get their car repaired.
Yep.
That's not the problem. The problem is just how well you're willing to, how easy you're making it on them, and how enjoyable the experience was. Because you could have someone that pay $5 grand and leave happy, even though they spent $5 grand.
Yeah.
But
And you could do an oil change on someone's vehicle and they leave a bad review.
Yep.
Depending on how they were handled.
Yep. I mean, it's all about how you present everything. Speaking of oil changes, that is one of the things that's helped a lot. We kind of glossed over. I know you
We
mentioned
did gloss
waiters.
over that.
You mentioned on my inspections. On my inspection, I don't do inspections on waiters. I actually have a bag system. One black bag if they're here, and a red bag if they're staying. That's your system as well, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got that from you.
Oh, the sleeves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those little bags.
Yeah.
If it's here, they find one thing with the car, one or two things. Usually safety, which makes it to where they need to stay. Anything like brakes, yada yada, so forth. They find one thing while they're doing this oil change, and then we have them keep the car, and then we do the 60 point, and then we're like, but we have to pitch it up to them saying, okay, we do a free inspection of your car, and we'll let you know what else we find if they leave it with us, right?
Yeah.
Which tees them up. I'm going to sell you more, so they're not going to be surprised when I hand them a laundry list of things,
Right.
But that's usually how I do it. But to get oil changes in, I sent out $10,000 worth of mailers in February, which hurt a lot because my P&L went negative $9 grand. So
It's a couple of P&Ls.
But what kind of
Or a
return
couple of
off
mailers,
that
I
investment
mean.
did you get?
my car count is increased around 20%. It's not necessarily due to that, but I had a lot of people come in that wouldn't have come in, not even just to oil changes, but just because they saw I put new ownership. I put a picture of me, my wife, and my baby child on there, and that's just having a kid on there is just
But
gold mine.
when you did those mailers, you also put in TechMetric, a new category. How did you hear about us?
Yeah.
Your coupon or your mailer or whatever you want to call it. Do you have a separate tracking number for that mailer?
No, I don't have a separate tracking number. I just have, it's a little barbaric. I have a little mason jar where whenever they use a coupon, they put it in there. So I just have a mason jar full of
I do
them.
that too.
I got you.
Yeah.
One of the kind of foolproof ways is, as you well know, setting up a separate tracking number. That's the number they called you on.
Yeah.
So that would automatically give you a report out of TechMetric and off of CallRail.
I think that mailers
I don't really get a lot of calls
I don't
off
think mailers
mailers.
work.
mailers are
I think
difficult
they
to
do work.
track. I know they work. I know they work. I used them for 7 months last year, and I've been using them for the last 4 months this year.
Let me rephrase. I do not think mailers work for the traditional transmission shop.
Absolutely.
No, they do not.
They do
I'm
not.
on the automotive side.
Yep.
I don't
Yeah.
do just transmission. I try to sell from the bottom down, not from the top down.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the bottom up, sorry.
Bottom up. Yeah, no, I agree. Mailers really help get that customer in the door. You're trying to generate customer service, repeat business,
Familiarity.
trying to get
Trust.
them a maintenance store, a maintenance shop. You want them to come in 2 to 4 times a year for regular maintenance.
Right.
When something does eventually happen to their vehicle, they're like, oh, I go to Eagle. And that's kind of the mindset that you want from them. Now, obviously, you want to get a full vehicle inspection on their vehicle, but you don't necessarily want to just hit them for everything that they've got when they first come in just for a regular oil change. They're checking out the shop. They're feeling you out.
Oh yeah, no. Speed is way more important than getting more things in the door.
100%.
I have them. I have a timer. When I first did it, I had a timer for them. If they have to find one thing wrong with the car in 10 minutes and bring it up to the service visor, and then we bring out the supervisor brings out the customer, and the technician shows everything what he found while he's doing the oil change, not before he did the oil change, because that is no bueno.
Yeah.
They'll be like,
That's
oh,
what
okay,
they
well, I
came in
don't
for.
really want to do it. I don't really want to do the brakes right now. Is my oil change ready? Yeah, I haven't started on it, but I'll start it right now.
Yeah.
No, you're doing the oil change. It's already
what
the
they
oil's
came
already
in for.
drawn, and you just showed them, hey, look, your brakes. I was doing your oil change and it's gone. Oh, well, I don't really want to do that today. All right, well, I'll just fill up your oil and you'll be on your way.
That's why it's so important for the front of the house and the back of the house to be in sync with each other. The manager and the communication with the technicians. Everybody has to be on the same page. Like, that is such an important thing. Otherwise, that whole system falls apart.
Yep. And how many times they did it wrong was an astronomical number of times. I had to be out there almost every time when it happened, because I had three specific things. One, the technician is the one that explains it until the customer asks how much. Then the service advisor comes in. The second thing is that I needed the technician to hand them a flashlight to make them feel more involved. It's a small thing, but a very crucial detail where it shows that the customer feels like they're a part of it.
Yeah.
They looked at it themselves. They can see that oil leak. Yep, it's right there.
I bought a flashlight at the Mansfield shop.
Yep,
There's
specifically for that.
specifically for the customers, so they can get handed a flashlight and they can feel important. It's the first time that they're seeing, more than likely, it's the first time that they're seeing underneath their vehicle and walking into a shop, so they're taking a lot in. They're hearing from the technician. I think it's important that the technician talks to the customer, because then it gives anything that the technician may have said, it allows the manager or the advisor to kind of either correct or go bounce off of what the technician was saying.
Correct. And it doesn't feel like you're being sold.
Exactly. It doesn't
It
feel
feels
like
like
you're being sold.
Just a concerned person worrying about your car, worrying about your well-being.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like you're trying to be just yoinked for every penny in your wallet. It makes them feel more comfortable, and they trust you, because it's just a small thing of you finding that thing, and then you still haven't changed the oil change. That immediately clicks in their brain psychologically, like you were trying to find this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
And you left them some milk money.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's important. The oil changes, I think most people think that it's a waste of time, and it's not. There's a lot of money to be made in waiters, show and sells. With onboarding, I'll usually bring any of my vehicles in, and we'll do a pretend show and sell every time we onboard somebody, and they just keep doing it over and over and over again.
There's certain dealerships that do a really, really good job at that, and they build that customer loyalty. And that customer goes back to them for everything.
Yep.
For instance, my wife, she goes to this Lexus dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to them for everything. When she got new tires, she thought her tires were too loud. She took it back to them, and they found a bad rear right wheel bearing. And sure enough, I was skeptical at first. I thought, doesn't sound like a wheel bearing to me.
Yeah.
I put that wheel bearing on there, fixed it right up.
Yeah.
So she's loyal. And that's the way most consumers are.
Yep.
I'm loyal to where I get my hair cut. I'm loyal to where I get my oil changed.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why I do the mailers. That's exactly why.
To get them in.
Who's going to deny a 1999 oil change?
Nobody.
It's
No,
such
they're
a hard
not.
deal to pass up. I mean,
But-
when every oil change is around $80 for them.
They all have to be handled correctly. Everybody always thinks as soon as you do a cheap oil change that it's going to bring in crappy customers, people that don't want to buy anything. It's totally besides the point. You're trying to
but
create a
don't do
customer
Groupon.
experience.
You're not a fan of Groupon?
I've
No.
tried it. It did not work. It brought in the lowest level.
Don't do Groupon.
Yeah, because usually people who own Groupon are usually just the people looking for deals and nothing more.
Yeah,
Correct.
do not do Groupon. I've done Groupon twice now in my career, and
Yeah,
Both
you're
times.
more
And
of a
they're
Craigslist guy.
unreasonable customers.
yeah,
They're
You're the-
unreasonable customers too.
Absolutely.
yeah. There are levels to it, but I mean that's almost like giving out free oil changes. Now I do a lot of free oil changes. I don't think people really know that about the stores that I run, but we offer a lot of opportunities for free oil changes. Not that we just hand out free oil changes for nothing, but with Steer, automatic messaging platform, if they are a repeat customer and their ARO per visit is over a certain amount, they'll either get a buy one get one free or they'll get a free oil change deal. And then we also have those little key tags, the hole punch key tags.
The loyalty program.
For every 3 oil changes you do, the 4th one's free. And so
That's a hell of a deal.
we mark it in the system, but my whole thing is the repeat business.
Absolutely.
Repeat is absolutely everything. And I always tell this story to certain people. We had a couple of years back, a January, we did $95,000. And then we started, I think I had 3% repeat. This is one of my first years owning an auto repair shop. And then that year, we really got heavy into full auto repair. And when we got into full auto repair, it increased our repeat business. By the next January, we had a 50% increase in repeat business. Our retail sales the following January was $95,000, and our repeat sales was $100,000. We did $195,000 year over year. We did $100,000 more than we did last year, and it was literally only in repeat business.
And it's so much cheaper to retain and have repeat business than it is to find new business.
Absolutely. So what's the cost of the oil change, getting them back in? How much does it really cost you?
It costs me cheaper than Google AdWords.
50 bucks?
And
40 bucks?
granted, you're not going to sell something every time they come in for an oil change.
Absolutely.
But let's just say they get a free oil change. Who else are they going to go to? They're going to go to you. I mean, they're not going anywhere
Yep.
else.
But the thing is, when you say things like that, people think like, oh, okay, I'll do that, and then it doesn't work because their shop looks like crap. They don't have good systems in place.
Yep.
It takes 50 minutes for them to do the oil change.
It's got to all come together.
You have to
the
fix
right way.
everything
Yep.
to make it sure every bit of the customer satisfaction is there, because that's what you're selling.
Yep.
You're selling the customer satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Because that's what I hear a lot of people say, like, oh, the oil changes don't work. That's because this isn't here.
And also, the other side of that is the prejudging. If the manager or service advisor knows that they're getting a free oil change and they come in, you can't not tell me that there's some.
You can't let them slump their shoulders
Exactly.
and say, oh, no, not another one of these.
Everybody's got to be treated the same with the same customer service experience.
I had one manager tell someone that we had an open lift, and he was like, "Oh no, all lifts are taken up because it was an oil change."
because
I
he just
fired
didn't
him on the
want
spot.
to. He didn't want to deal with
I
it.
fired him that day, that moment.
Was it Mark Miller?
No, God, I never had Mark Miller.
Oh,
No.
You're lucky.
Yeah, there's some people that have been annexed from the Eagle company. It's like a go saying without saying. People talk about how there's this blacklist with Eagle, and it's like, no, I mean, it's just if you don't
They're either eligible for rehire or they're not.
hit
That's
a certain
it.
standard, why are we gonna hire you back? You proved what you can do.
You're preaching to the choir here. I'm probably one of the biggest no people out there when I see someone being brought back into our company that's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good for our company.
And that just comes from desperation. Hiring somebody that isn't going to be as good. And that's the thing I always preach. Always be looking for good help.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the always be recruiting thing. Always be recruiting for all positions. And if you're always consistently recruiting for all positions, it's not weird. It's not this odd
It's a regular thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, oh yeah, the owner always interviews. Instead of once a year you bring in an interview in front of everybody and they're like,
Yeah, they all get tense and
After
scared,
some
and
bad
then
performance.
Yep,
Or
and then
they-
they start looking on Indeed real quick.
They get an attitude or something.
And
You
then they
can't
see your ad advertising for them.
Yep.
exactly. But if you're always interviewing for all positions, it's just another guy that's coming in all the time. And it also helps the owner be able to enforce things. If you have a roster and you always are recruiting and you have a list of people on your bench built up, it allows you to not be so passive with your employees and actually enforce things in your business.
Yeah, you're not feeling held hostage by any of your employees. Where
Because-
I can't let them go because I don't have anyone.
Yeah,
Exactly.
But now you have their replacement waiting
Exactly.
for that job.
And there are people that are better than others, but you always have to be able to be in a position where you know that you can replace somebody. Because otherwise, you're giving them the power, and you don't have the power to actually enforce changes. So, yeah, that's a big thing.
They hold you hostage.
Yeah.
And speaking of having a roster, I would definitely suggest asking D2 for his roster sheet. I use it as well.
Yeah.
It's a good sheet. And then also speaking of
the template.
yep, the
Yeah.
template.
Yeah, it's a Google Sheet template, and I can share it to anybody that needs it. It's
Yeah,
a really good
It's on
template.
Eagle Connection Center, I believe.
It is on Eagle Connection Center, yes.
Okay.
And then also, if anyone ever needs it, I have plenty of people in the wings. If anyone's ever looking for technician, manager, whatever, I can always hook them up with at least 3 of
Heath
each.
is always looking.
Yeah, I've sent him. I've sent Heath specifically. I think 7 technicians.
Wow.
It's a tough thing when you have people in the lineup, especially for like Matthew and I. Our shops are on
So far apart.
yeah, well, they are very far apart, but then also they're far away from any other Eagle strategically as well, because like we were talking about the conflict of interest. The problem is if you find a good candidate and you can't hire him and you want to give him the rest of the Eagles, either one of us, they're going to end up being 45 minutes away from the closest Eagle.
Sure.
Because our shops are so far away. But it's kind of a good and bad thing. So, because then you get into this loop of constantly sending people to everybody else. If all the Eagle owners were constantly interviewing, we really wouldn't have as big of an issue with hiring.
They don't want to put the effort in.
Yeah.
It
As
gets-
an example, I got another text from another owner the other day asking if I knew any technicians available. I didn't want to put him on the spot.
Right.
So I did send him the name of someone that I knew was just sent to me to pacify, to give him an opportunity to get,
Yeah.
personnel that he needs. But I really, truly want to re-answer, whether it be through Eagle Connection Center or whatever venue, people, this is available to you out there. You need to start hiring, recruiting, interviewing, build your bench.
Yeah, and it is not the franchise's responsibility to hire and interview for you as a
Not at all.
franchisee. That's
it
one of
creates
the
liability.
It creates liability, but then also it's one of the things as a business owner that you do. First of all, that
one of
would
the
be
only things you do as the owner.
if we were to do recruiting for all the locations, that would take more than one person, a full-time recruiter. It would take way more than one person. But then second of all, it's way more effective and efficient for each individual business owner to be always interviewing for all positions.
Sure.
Across the board.
They know what they need. They know what they're looking for.
Exactly. And we look for full auto repair versus transmission only. I mean, we look for very different qualities. What I look for qualities may not be what you look for in qualities. And who's to say if I count somebody out, you would have counted them in? It just doesn't make sense doing it that
And
way.
somebody might want to do a Simmons survey on them.
Right.
Others don't want to spend the money.
That and some shops don't do flag. I don't really understand it, but some shops don't do flag. and
Highly
they'll-
recommend that too.
If any technician doesn't want to do flag, they're terrible.
Yeah.
That's the stance I'll just die.
Well, there's so many different angles to that.
There's a level of
age-old
laziness.
question. Well, some of those technicians don't want to work on flag hours.
Yep.
They like the gravy. They like to produce 25 hours
Yeah.
and, be there for 50. They just don't want to rise to the level that they need to be aggressive and make good money, make a good paycheck.
It's also like when we talk about what is the owner's responsibility? What is his job responsibility for the shop? A good owner is
Constantly recruiting.
Constantly recruiting.
Managing
Always
his
looking for
manager.
new help. He's managing his manager, and he's always
Making the phone ring.
he's always working on making the phone ring. Those are the 3 top things that a good owner does. Ultimately, I know it sounds a little vague, but if you focus on those 3 things and nothing else, you'll ultimately run a good shop.
Back to the employee thing. Don't you remember the term take home?
Yeah.
That's all they wanted was what their take home was going to be. Didn't care about how many cars they worked on or any of that goes towards performance-based pay.
Right.
How I need this much take home.
We are really evolving as an industry altogether, honestly.
Yeah.
Flat rate is not uncommon anymore. In fact, it's
the most
more
common.
common than not now.
Yeah.
And what used to be is not what it is now.
It took us a long time to get here because of supply and demand
Yep.
of the employee, the R&R and the builder. The supply and demand, there was a high demand and a low supply. They dictated their wages to us.
Yep. There's a lot of people, obviously, you know, there's this whole thing where we constantly need technicians. There's a high demand of technicians right now. I think that demand is slowly going down, and I think the pay is going to start reflecting it, honestly. Whereas before, technicians were in such high demand they could demand certain pay. Now, I think a lot of people saw that, and they started going to school for it. There's a lot of people in Colorado even. There's a lot of people that went to school to be a technician. They've been doing it for the last 2 years. And 2 years from now, they'll be full-fledged automotive technicians.
That's the same trend with HVAC,
Yep.
electricians, plumbers.
Yep.
That these young workers are now going to trade schools, and there's even the companies out there are willing to bring them on and pay them to train them.
Yeah.
And then they're theirs. There's a level of commitment there.
Yeah. We are starting an apprenticeship program in Parker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we bring in a GS that works with the shop foreman, and he handles all the oil changes. And we have a whole process for that because the demand of technicians.
Yes.
And we want people to learn our way with our technician, our shop foreman, and how to do certain things, learning all the bells and whistles, powertrain drops, and what have you.
Right.
And I'm finally to a place where we can do an apprenticeship program. I mean, you have to get to a certain place in
That's
a shop.
a hard thing to do.
It is. It is. But I think it'll pay off. After a year, there's a program where if they don't hit they have to hit certain requirements quarterly. And if they can't learn and excel every quarter, and we have certain tests quarterly, and if they can't hit those certain tests, then they're out.
I think we're missing the boat when it comes to going through junior colleges locally
Yeah.
that or high schools that have the auto mechanic program. That's all these kids do is they go to a class for mechanic, auto mechanic.
Yep.
And talking to the instructors or the department had to find out who are your superstars. You know, we've seen technicians that want to be technicians, but they don't have what it takes.
They don't have it.
No.
Yeah.
You have to have it.
Yep.
That it factor. And the instructor can tell you who's got the common sense, who's got the general knowledge that they're probably going to be successful.
There is a natural talent that comes with being a technician for sure.
Yeah, if you were a kid that as a kid you like to take lawnmowers apart or mini bikes apart and put them back together, you're a good candidate.
Yeah.
Because you tinkered.
Versus the kid that saw the wages that technicians are getting paid, so he
Versus
decided to do it, and he doesn't understand anything with vehicles.
Versus the kid that watches it on YouTube.
Yeah. The YouTube mechanic.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm very wary, especially out here. They're very like, oh, I've been working on cars since I was 3 years old. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, have you ever worked in a shop? No, sir.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and
It is a little different.
scoot on out of here.
It is a little different. We're evolving as an industry. There's a certain level of quality that wasn't there before.
It's demanded now because of the sophistication of these vehicles we work on today.
Yeah.
They're highly technical.
So you are working on an increase of 600,000. What, this year or year over year from last year?
So my first year was 8. Second year was around 1.1.
Okay.
And then now it's looking 1.5 to 1.6.
1.5 to 1.6. So you think I'm just trying to think goals wise. You think 2 years, you'll hit the 2 million mark? The end of this year being
I'm
1
hoping
year.
next year I hit 2.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good goal. Yeah.
Because it speeds up. I think it snowballs a lot when you keep getting more and more new customers and they like what you do. The return customer rate, like you said, comes a lot more. Obviously, that's a lot different than just the standard transmission. You don't just get repeat transmission customers unless you really messed up. I think with my style, it's more of I try to skip the low points, because in transmission only, man, those high points are high, but those low points
are
low.
They are low. One of the reason why I ask you about the goals and scaling and revenue, there's difference from a shop growing and scaling and leaning. And what you're going to find after you hit your goal of 2 million or 2.5 or whatever you skyrocket to, you're going to hit a certain repeat business percentage. And like it did at my store, where I got up to about 77% repeat, this year I increased my prices across the board from going from, I think it was a 52.5% GP to now minimum 56%. We're hitting like 56.5 right now this year. We're about, 3-4 months into the year.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped the bottom 10% of my customers to make that happen. So my new customer percentage increased, my repeat customer decreased, but just by like about 10%, 10-15%.
Yeah.
It's scary to see that number change, but if you hold your shop to it, your GP dollars increase so drastically. And I think what happens is they do it way too soon. You need to have a goal of what is your shop capable of doing based off of your area and how many bays you have. Set your goal, get as close to that goal as possible, which takes being in growth mode, which takes more advertising dollars, more not micromanaging, but more focus on your systems and processes and perfecting them. And then once you're to that goal, then you can really start to work on leaning it out, cutting back your advertising a little bit, and then really focusing on pushing that GP. And you really start making a lot more money doing that too.
Yep. I've been slowly increasing my labor rate, and then also increasing hours per job.
Yeah.
I'm like on a plan to do every 4 months I raise it by like $5.
Do you have different hourly rates for different categories?
At the moment, no, I do not.
I've seen some shops do it and do it pretty well.
Yep.
For certain levels of work and certain levels of product. If it's a BMW versus a Chevy.
Yep.
They'll charge more to work on the BMW than the Chevy.
I do that. It's not dependent on the vehicle make or model. It's dependent on the type of work that it is. We have a labor matrix. We don't share our labor rate with customers. I feel like that's a common misconception where managers will hand out the labor rate. Just like how you don't price quote, you don't hand out your labor rate. It's not a mandatory thing. Mm-hmm. And so we have a labor matrix. If you do if a job has over so many hours on it, it'll automatically increase. But we also have a labor rate increase depending on if it's diesel work,
right.
Depending on if
Great
it's
example.
a carry-out transmission unit or something like that. And then we have release of liability forms depending on what type of work that we're doing.
Sorry to, I did want to touch a little bit on something. What do you do exactly for if a customer wants to bring his own parts? Do you even entertain the idea? If that's the only way to retain them, what's your call on that?
I pass.
You pass?
I pass based on liability, because if something goes wrong during that process, you own it. And it's just from liability purposes, and there's only two ways we make money: parts and labor.
Absolutely.
And you can't take half of our livelihood away.
No, for sure.
I think
It's rare, but it happens.
I think the thing, so we do parts, customer supplied part jobs. We have an increase of labor rate, and then we have a release of liability form.
Performance parts, I would agree to.
But we don't advertise it.
Correct.
We try to not entertain it. I think it's one of those things where, just like the price quoting, technically there are things that you can price quote over the phone. There's different circumstances that you can, but it's not something that we try to teach our guys because we're talking about the majority of situations here. It's not such a common thing where people have their own parts. It happens, but if you try to train your guys and really focus on it, then before you know it, your manager or your advisor starts recommending it. And they create bad habits. It's not a rabbit hole.
Richardson, they were doing that.
Yeah.
If you want to go and bring your own parts, I can get it done cheaper for you. But if it came to like a dual mass flywheel with a high performance clutch,
Yeah.
and the customer wanted to supply his own parts, he's responsible for them. He signs the release of liability.
Yeah.
Because it's not normally parts you would install.
But he's
anyway.
going to get charged for it, though. I mean,
Oh,
our
yeah, he
labor rate
raised
goes
the
up to
labor
like
rate.
$220, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for customer supply parts.
Yep.
I think that's about the same thing I do. I remove any warranty from it. I tell them up front. I have them sign it.
It has to be up front.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they don't have any warranty. We'll do it. We raise the labor rate, and then if something happens, it's not on us. It's not really we released it, but we'll do the work if you want us to do it. However, the only time I allow him to do that is if he looks back at my board, which I have a board of gross profit to break even, so it'll show red, and until it hits break even, it'll turn green. The only time he's allowed to do that is when my gross profit is green,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter at that point.
But you got to be careful. If that technician does one wrong thing to install it, and the customer can prove it, for instance, misinstalling a
Yeah.
dual mass flywheel. If he strips a bolt hole out in the flywheel from the pressure plate,
Yeah.
I mean that's probably one of the more common things. But you got to you got to put your top tech on it.
Yeah, usually we discourage it. We'll usually tell the customer about the parts and labor warranty that we have at our store. That usually discourages customers from doing it. The people that strictly want their parts on there, it's either a custom job or it's a job that you wouldn't typically want, or a customer that you
Right.
typically wouldn't want.
Right.
It's not a quality repeat customer that you're going to get out of that for sure.
And especially if you convince them that your warranty is better than their warranty.
Oh, absolutely.
Throwing a lifetime warranty on a windshield wiper motor, or pick something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Matthew, one of the things I wanted to ask about, what was this room before?
Junk.
This room was filled with, sorry, Mr. Block and Virgil, their garbage.
I mean, I don't think it was Mr. Block's garbage, but
It was a bunch of old transmission cases, transmission
Hard
parts, a bunch of hard parts, furniture, washing machine,
storage.
just
Yeah.
a giant storage unit that they used, and I couldn't walk in here. There was also
Kind of like the hangar.
Yeah.
no, a lot less organized than the hangar. The hangar's quite organized.
Yeah.
Still a lot of stuff, though.
Oh, there is a lot of stuff.
You could furnish a small house.
Yeah.
For me to get to one side to the other, it took I'd say around 5 minutes if I tried not to step on anything. It was that jam-packed on the floor. So I was able to remove all the metal that was here from the previous management. It wasn't Virgil or Mr. Block's transmission stuff. It was more of like a lot of their storage, like furniture and stuff. The transmission came from the previous management where they were building, and they just dumped old parts and stuff. They had
We might need
so
that
many
one
parts.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we needed that one day. I scrapped all of it for around $5,000 worth of metal. I didn't even care.
It's a lot of metal.
Yeah, I didn't even care to negotiate whatever. He took a quick glance. He's like, "I'll take it for $5,000." I'm like, "Done." I didn't move it. They took it all out. I had a giant wooden shelf. I don't know if they can see back here. A giant wooden shelf back here. I had one of my technicians come here on the weekend with an axe and just break it apart and sell it. And another garbage person came by, took all the wood.
Yeah.
And then I had to get everything checked out with the city, water, electricity, yada yada, so forth. fire hazards. I had to make this an actual,
Street address.
an actual building with an address and everything. And then I put 2 lifts in here from Best Buy Auto. They were here within 20 days.
Yeah.
And they've been working great ever since. And it's a really good way for us to, because they were always complaining when we had a builder, which we don't have anymore. They would complain about the builder's speed. I mean, he would get 3 out a week, roughly.
It's not worth having a builder, guys.
Not at all.
I always recommend against a builder. It's always the most
absolutely.
toxic guy in the shop. They're way overpriced.
The thing is, my lifts would get tied up, and then it was sitting there, and then they would forget how to put it back together, or they not really forget, but they would like lose like some bolts. Like, oh, where's this stupid bolt?
Check balls lost. All kinds of things.
So that's the reason why I wanted to bring this whole thing up about what this room was before, and why you knew that it was important to put lifts in here. Is what a lot of shop owners don't understand is what bay efficiency is.
It generates revenue. It doesn't hold
Exactly.
hard parts that you'll never use again.
Why it's important to have, first of all, 2-post lifts and not drive-ons, because the only reason why you have multiple drive-ons is because your technician convinced you, because he doesn't want to
rack them
because it's too much effort.
The most overlooked lift is a 12,000-pound 2-post lift.
Exactly.
It holds the same weight as a drive-on, but it's 2 posts. You can work on the 1-tons. You can work on all those city vehicles.
You can't do as much work on a drive-on. It breeds laziness. It takes up so much space. It's difficult to get your cart underneath. There's a certain amount of efficiency that's lost with having a drive-on lift. And the whole model that we preach, having a tech per bay, maybe the foreman has 2 lifts or something. There's so much that goes into bay efficiency. We have a labor rate of, what is your labor rate here?
I have 130 right now.
130, multiplied by however many hours you have in a day. We go by 40 hours in a week by 130. That's $5,200 a week per bay, just in labor alone. If you're being efficient.
That's at 100% efficient.
That's at 100% efficiency.
Right.
That doesn't count parts.
I think most bays run at around an 80%
Yeah.
efficiency.
So at 80%, we're talking 4160 per bay. And how many lifts do you have?
I have 8 at the moment.
8. That's $33,280 in labor, not counting the parts.
Yep.
And if you run anywhere close to 50-50,
that's if I have a tech per bay that always has a car.
Which means that you're at 80% efficiency, your shop's ability is $66,560 a week right now as it stands. If you have a tech per bay. And for all the people that want to have multiple lifts per tech, that literally just comes from a lazy technician. The way you get around that is when you first hire them, you say, here's your bay. This is your bay. And then they don't know anything else. It is a
hard transition.
It is tough.
Well, I don't want to button this one up. I don't care.
This is
button it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you should pay me for this. No. You need to button this up and get the next car in rolling.
So the statistics show, and there's multiple sources that show this, if a technician has a second lift, his efficiency increases by 10%. So you tell me, is it better to have a second technician or give one technician a second lift? I would much rather have a second technician doing way more efficiency out of that bay than one tech getting 10% more efficiency out of his hours worked.
Yeah,
and that's where that whole ideology comes from.
Yeah, you're getting a tech that second tech could be, 110% efficient out of that other bay.
Yeah, you're getting way more production hours out of that bay. And with you and expanding all of this, you're getting your potential just shoots through the roof.
Yep. The potential for this place is 13 lifts.
Yeah.
And that's if I have 1 4-post lift that I can replace for 2 2-posts. That would bring it up to 13.
So at 130, and we'll just do the math real quick. 130 for the labor rate times 40 at 80% efficiency, 4160 per bay times 13 lifts That's $54,080 a week in labor alone. And if you're close to the 50/50 model, it's $108,160 a week. As that's for like max building potential at 80% efficiency. You know, so then you look at what your max potential is for this store, which is $5,600,000.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, which is actually more than either one of my stores. That's why I liked Mansfield 10 lifts. I was like, the potential out of this store. I don't think
Crazy.
people understand bay efficiency, getting rid of your builder so you're not tying up a lift. You get more cars in and out. You increase your repeat business. There's a whole science behind the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Because so the gravy that people like, the reason why people use builders is because the profit is so much better for you, right? But the problem is that profit gets stifled by the speed of what you get it out.
Exactly, the speed.
So I can get a less profit at a faster speed, and I can earn more money that way.
You can look at it with the example of profit per hour.
Yep.
And you take the total number of hours it takes to do that job, R&R it and overhaul it. Let's say it's 10. And the money that you get is going to be very similar, but the efficiency on saving those 6 hours of the builder, that's gone.
Yeah.
You don't have that anymore.
Yep,
It's
and and it also helps with how fast the technicians do it and like their peace of mind, because when I get the transmission, that's when they pull it out and then they put it in.
Yep.
Instead of pulling it out, having it sit
Tore
on a bay,
down,
and then I can't bring in any more
inspection.
customers because that bay has been taken up for 3 days because we're waiting on parts for a transmission. We finally found the diagnostic on it. We got the parts. He put it together, and then now finally he's like, okay, I got to finish this job really quick because I'm already on it. And then after he's done with that job, then he can go back to the previous transmission and put it in.
It's
Too much wasted time.
It's a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset, and it's difficult to make that transition to the abundance mindset and seeing, oh, well, what if I don't get the leads? Well, you're already backlogged. That's not a good thing. Being backlogged is not I would rather make the money faster so that I can bring more people in, which in the long run is going to increase my customer base because there's speed. Money loves speed. And customers, they want speed. What is our industry lacking right now? You go to any dealership right now, what are they
2
telling
weeks.
you? At least 2 weeks.
That's true.
Yep,
And that's what we're competing with is the dealership standard, which they don't care about any of that stuff.
because people will come to them regardless. They don't give a garbage.
Yeah.
They don't care.
No, what they turn to is loaner cars.
Yeah.
That was the answer to that.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to take 3 weeks? No problem. Let me give you a loaner car.
But then they run out so fast.
Yep.
My wife gets one every single time she goes in.
Which I do have been planning to get a loaner car, multiple loaner cars, but that's down the line.
I've been looking into the loaner car system. I think I might go on that model here soon. After I get my third location,
Yep.
I think I'm going to do that.
Because right now I have a kind of like a deal with Enterprise right now, but just to help anyone that like.
Can only take you so
It's
far,
not
but
1995 anymore.
it's a
is
good
it?
relationship to
No.
have, but it'll only take you so far.
That's when that was my rate way back, but now it's probably 50, 60 bucks.
Yeah, it cost me around there was one time where I had 3 customers not get out right before Thanksgiving, and they were livid because they don't have a car to go see their
Counting on
family.
a car,
Yeah.
I got all 3 of them rental cars without them really asking me, and so obviously, but with Enterprise I have to have them put their information in there, and I just reimbursed them with a check because if I paid for it and then they just never came back with a car, then well.
It's on you. It's on
Yeah.
you.
But yeah, no, I think I've just my biggest thing on turning the shop around has been absolute focus on customer satisfaction. Nothing more, nothing less. Just customer satisfaction and making sure everyone's on board with that customer satisfaction.
And using data, real number data, and relying on that instead of your personal feelings.
Yep.
That's a big thing that I don't think, like we were talking about bay efficiency, people can't get past their own personal hangups. When you look at the data, like I would much rather act on the data provided than, oh, well, I just don't know if I could get my shop there. It's right there.
Oh yeah.
There's a formula for it all.
Yes, there is.
Oh yeah. No, my P&L is my master.
Yeah.
Easy. The P&L is the boss of me.
The numbers are the boss. If you let your personal feelings be the boss, it won't work unless you're a fortune teller. It just will not work. And that was one of the biggest things with me, the weekly meetings that we have. It's not me that's getting on their butt about anything. I'm literally looking at the numbers and saying, hey, we had a dip in this. Can you explain why we had a dip in this? You did that.
Yeah.
It's not me that did that.
And trust me, I know your weekly calls to me of my calls dipped. Look at my AdWords. I'm like, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
He
yeah.
did that too.
I always look at
Oh, yeah,
it.
I think David reaches out to me more than any other owner.
Yeah. Yeah, to all those people that reach out to Matthew about AdWords.
Yeah,
I do the
I've had a couple
same
people
thing.
like, hey, I'm sorry for reaching out to you. I'm like, don't even worry about it. There's someone that reaches out way more.
Now, that doesn't mean when I call I'm a dick about it, but I don't blame you for anything. I provide you with data, and I tell you what's happening in my store, and then I ask if there's something that we can correct within AdWords, or if you see something that's going on. You know, there's a big difference in looking at the data and trying to work with you on a solution instead of just saying, this is your fault, I'm hands-free. That is an irresponsible owner that doesn't want to take responsibility for his own store.
There's certain owners that think it's corporate's job to do this.
Yeah.
They throw the problem. You're supposed to solve it. An owner called me the other day, and he said, are any other shops really slow? Because I'm really slow. And I said, have you listened to your phone calls for the past 2 weeks? Dead silence.
Yep.
Did not. He said, no, I haven't.
Yep.
I said, you need to do that first before you call complaining about your phone calls being
I
done.
always look at everything before I call Matthew or you or anybody about what's going wrong in my shop. I look at the call volume every single day. I audit tickets all the time. We review things, look at the repeat business, seeing if there's anything that could have affected something. Everything is a formula, guys. Like, there's really not anything that hasn't been done before. It's not rocket science. But
You just took the words out of my mouth.
if you're not putting good data into your point of sale system, you can't expect to be able to diagnose your shop.
It's critical.
Yeah, otherwise you have no idea what's going on. That's why we always try to preach using all of our systems and processes correctly, because it's not because we're trying to audit you. We want to be able to give you the opportunity to diagnose your own store. That way, if anything starts going sideways, you are able to address it quickly.
Get ahead of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be proactive about it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you get behind it, there's no data, and nobody has any idea what's going wrong in the shop.
I would go with my managers, and I'd say, how did this person hear about us? And there would be no answer. And I'd say, exactly. I don't know. You don't know. We have no data. If you're not documenting where our source is coming from, we have no data.
Yeah. I will say that is one thing that I'm really trying to nail down this year that you've been talking to me about, which is the how did you hear about us?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is
My
it is
coach
something,
actually just read me yesterday about that.
it is something that just you go through all these systems and processes, and it seems like that is the one thing that always gets left behind, the how did you hear about us? And then you finally get all your systems and processes down, and then you look at your reports and you're like, crap, I did not harp on this enough. I did not get on them about, I didn't enforce this enough.
Because it is every single call. It's not like a certain scenario. That's the one that's everything. That's a lead.
Yeah.
That's a pull. That's a walk-in. That's everything.
It sends a second message
Yeah.
that someone referred you to me. So obviously there's someone out there that thought enough of us to send you to us.
Now, I do want to point out one cool new feature that's in CallRail, guys. There's a new AI technology in CallRail where if your manager asks, and corporate's paying for this, by the way, if your manager or whoever's answering the phone asks, how did you hear about us? There's a reference, a referral. I don't know exactly what it's called. It's like marketing reference, I think it's called in CallRail. But it uses AI where it will capture if you ask how they heard about you and the customer tells you how they heard about you, it will categorize it for
Is
you.
it on a report?
It is.
All right.
So you don't even have to take notes on it. It will automatically pick it up in CallRail using AI. That's a new feature that we have that just got released last month.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you can actually go back and pull up a source report.
All they have to do is ask. They don't even have to write it down anymore. So if they're actually
But that-
asking, it'll actually capture
But
it
the-
and give you the
But
report.
that's in CallRail.
Yeah, not in
In
TechMetrics.
call
It's
rail.
not in TechMetric.
Nope.
Yeah, they have to manually put it in.
Strictly in
Right.
CallRail. Yeah.
And I'm trying to be a lot more specific with how'd you hear about us? Because I just have like online, walk-in, repeat, which you don't really need to repeat because it automatically picks up repeat because the customer's already in your system. So
An outside sales guy asked me once, so if they were originally referred to you by Firestone, but then the customer came back, don't I get credit for that too? I said, well, it doesn't exactly work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand their perspective,
Yeah.
but
now you get one.
They
you
came
get one
back-
pizza, and
yeah,
you
they came
relax.
back because they liked you and they got good service.
Ultimately. So when you put them into the system with the "How did you hear about us" thing, do you have a default that says no source, or do you have a
It's no
default?
source.
It's no source.
Yep,
It
and they
should
have to
force
physically.
you.
Oh yeah, no, there is a setting on TechMetric which I have on that you have to put it in, or you can't close the ticket.
Right.
Unfortunately, what my manager does, and I know a lot of people have this problem, is they'll just click something, anything.
Repeat.
Like,
That's
done,
why.
and
That's
then
why I asked
done.
about the default, because 9 times out of 10, when you see the default setting like internet or mine is the default is just customer. It's a word that just says customer.
You know why they do that is because they're closing out the ticket and it comes
Oh,
to,
yeah.
and they go, oh,
Yeah, they're
crap.
trying to process the money really quick, and
yeah,
they're
I
like,
forgot.
oh, and they're like,
forgot.
and then we're done.
Yep.
Yep. And I don't want if it says customer on the report, I know at the very least
They fudged it.
that they did nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is
Also,
something I got to work on.
I would
for
say
sure.
the same thing as source. I would, if you guys have TechMetric, for the love of God, please make it mandatory to put the mileage in.
The what?
Oh, yeah.
The
Oh,
mileage.
the mileage. Yeah.
I've had so many times where people left without mileage, and the warranty's a 12/12. I don't know when that 12 ends.
Well, I think it's so crucial to enforce to your managers nowadays because with TechMetric and most of the point of sale systems that we have,
4 minutes
it
left.
integrates with Carfax. So the mileage that you put in the system reports it to Carfax. So if you're not putting in the right data, that's a serious problem. That
It
it's
is.
reporting to the Carfax
Yeah.
report, and it goes on their Carfax report. Like, you don't want to mess that up for the customer.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So it extends even beyond that. But
All right. Well, did you have any final thoughts for me? Final questions?
no, man, I think you're headed in a really good direction. You really have stampeded through all of the biggest barriers in business, I think. And I've seen you grow just as you've seen me grow, and Mike has seen both of us. And, you know, I think it's just you'll get to your goals, and we'll interview you then, I'm sure, and see how everything has been from this point to that point. But I'm excited to see where this shop goes and takes you, and what the bigger goals is as far as scalability or even possibly another location.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to coming back a year from now and give you an attaboy
Yeah.
that you did it.
Well, I
You set your
appreciate it.
goals. You achieved the goals by having a direction set. Your compass is excellent. It's going really, really well. Very proud to be associated with you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I hope in 1 or 2 years' time, you and Scott Delich will be taken down.
Scott, oh, yeah.
I will. I've made it my personal mission to take you and Scott Delich and my other friend Jordan, who owns a shop. Hilariously enough.
Well, good
You
luck
guys-
with that, Matthew.
You guys are my competitors, and I hope you guys keep pushing to a point that is so unbelievably unreachable that gives me more hope to reach even further.
Well, your store technically has more potential than the Parker location. I don't know about Mansfield, but
Yeah, you have more base.
yeah, we'll see where that goes, man. I think that you can get this store at least to $4 million with
I sure
where
hope
you
so.
are. I think you will.
That's pretty bodacious.
No,
Hey.
Why not?
It's
why not
all in the
shoot, Why not
numbers.
shoot for this guy?
it's not this
Absolutely.
guy. It's in the numbers. His potential's 5.6. I think 4 is not that far off.
And the city's growing. It's growing
Yeah.
quite well.
Yeah. You're kind of tracking the same growth pattern that I did in Parker, 600,000 increase a year.
Yeah, and you went through COVID.
I had $1 million increase in COVID. That's a different story. But yeah, it's you'll get there. So I'm excited to see that. But that pretty much wraps it up, guys.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
sweet.
All right.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Well, that pretty much wraps up this episode. I appreciate it, you guys, if you've watched this far. I do want to say the reason why we're doing this, we're trying to get more backstory so that you understand what's kind of going on in our individual stores, the backstory of the shop owners behind them, and the journey that they've gone through to make a shop successful from a zero to a hero, like my friend Matthew here. And so keep watching us for more content in the future, and we'll see you guys later.